Welcome back, brave souls, to our macabre parade through the crimson-scented night. This evening, we delve into a realm of terror that chills to the bone. Among the billions of minds on this planet, some harbor sinister thoughts that breed unspeakable ideas, and from these vile ideas, malevolent cults are born. They revel in rituals so twisted, the mere mention of them will make your skin crawl and your ears weep blood. Journey with us as we forge onward through the Stygian mists, praying for the dawn when we might emerge unscathed.
Last week I was at work and received a text from my boyfriend around 6-7 p.m. that he was adventuring near the outskirts of a park we usually go to. He took some photos documenting his journey as he went along, and the few moments I peel away from my phone, I receive frantic texts from him saying he found a burnt body. My mind immediately skips to, get the fuck out of there and call the police. And as I write him back, he says, I found some weird cultist hideout. Coincidentally, I'm working on a novel that's cult-inspired, and lately I've been having writer's block. Because he has the tendency to over-amplify situations, at first I think he's just messing with me when he texts. I have some story content for you. As I question the odds of a cultist hideout or satanic rituals happening a few miles from our place, I ask him to send some pictures to confirm. Sure enough, there's a body, but it's not human. Dragged out and placed on the center of the tracks are the charred remains of a deer, completely scorched and unidentifiable except the skeletal remains of legs and hooves protruding out. He sends another picture showing a fire pit someone made a few feet away. He tells me further down he found a hole in the cement wall of the overpass that looked seemingly endless and pitch black. Written beside it says, "Don't come in, don't leave," with some Latin he can't read. After that, he noped the fuck out of there, because the sun was close to setting. We went back yesterday afternoon, exactly a week after his creepy experience. This time around, however, was all the more unsettling because we found out whoever brought the deer came back to this place. And thankfully, we didn't meet them. From the railroad tracks, we climbed up the cement slope leading to the bottom of the highway overpass, which gave us a bird's-eye view overlooking the railroad tracks and everything he saw on his first encounter, except the portal to hell hole. We followed along the cement walkway along the top to see if we could spot it from a distance, but the further we venture, the more uninviting this whole place feels. My knees feel like they could crumble beneath me, and my hands tremble when this rotten smell overcomes us. We enter the threshold of what smells like fermenting sewage and see another deer maybe 15-ish feet below us, dragged out onto the center of the tracks. We're close enough to see the swarming black silhouettes of flies trickling over the corpse. Worse, we notice this deer wasn't roadkill, wasn't shot, or anything of that sort. There's a slice in its chest. Within a week, this huntsman creep brought out a new corpse left to rot in the center of an abandoned railroad beneath a highway overpass. We didn't get a picture of the new body or the hell portal, which would have been nearby, because we were too busy blocking out the ungodly stench surrounding us. My curiosity got the best of me to go back there, and I've got to say my writer's block has definitely passed, because I've never experienced anything more cruel or gut-wrenching in my entire life.
About 2 years ago, my friends and I had found out about an abandoned, insane asylum located in Downey, California. Being the curious 17-year-olds that we were, we decided it'd be a good idea to go explore this abandoned facility just to see what we could find inside. So on a Saturday night, we gathered a few more of our friends and made the drive out to Downey so we could explore this building for ourselves. After about 30 minutes of driving, we arrive in Downey and make our way through the city to where the asylum is located. The closer we get, the shadier and shadier the neighborhoods we're passing through become. and after about another 15 minutes of driving, we arrive at our destination. We park the car, climb through a hole in the fence, and make our way into the building to see what we could find. To be honest, it started out not being too bad. Considering we had about 10 people, we were thinking, what's the worst that could happen to a group of 10 people? So we meander through the building, looking at all the broken furniture scattered throughout the rooms, the patient files thrown upon the floor, and we're pretty much just having a good time looking at once was this weird mental institution. But this is where shit gets weird. As we're walking, we of course had a flashlight pointed down the hallway because the power that was once in this building was and is clearly out. But as we're walking with our flashlight pointed ahead of us and we come to a corner, we see the adjacent wall of the corner light up from what we assumed was another flashlight. And sure enough, we turn the corner and there's another group of 4 kids. Shady, weird fucking kids. We confront each other and they ask us if we'd been to the slide. We politely answer no because we have no idea what they're talking about and they tell us that we should follow them. Of course we decline because we're getting weird vibes from these people. And as they're talking amongst themselves, one of the kids comes up to me with, I kid you not, a solid 6-inch long Bowie knife looking thing. Isn't this cool? Look what I found, as he moves the knife closer to my face. I politely answer what a cool find that is, and we start to back away, telling them that we're going to go explore the roof of the building. Surprisingly, they say all right and they turn the corner and continue on their way. All right, now that was out of the way, I'm seriously beginning to feel weird about being in this place and about how we're definitely not supposed to be here. So at that point I say, fuck it, we need to go to the roof, go down the fire escape and get out of here. So we make our way to the roof and we're sitting there plotting our escape. Like I said, people are not supposed to be in the asylum, so they have a police car stationed at the main gate to make sure no one comes in. So as we're up there, we try and figure out the best path to get out of here without getting noticed by the police. That's when my friend sees a fire escape ladder coming down off of this higher portion of the roof. We decide that that is probably our best bet, so we grab a small ladder that will be able to boost us up onto this higher portion of the roof. My friend Jonah goes up and immediately turns around so he could help other people out by pulling them up. As I'm getting myself up there, my heart completely fucking sinks. Jonah, did you not see this when you got up here? I whisper. What the fuck are you talking about, man? He responds. I'm looking forward, and he slowly turns to see what was pretty much our worst fucking nightmare. There's about 15 hooded people sitting in a circle up there surrounding a burning cat or some other dead animal. These motherfuckers are talking in tongues and just making noises which seem satanic. As we're both getting down, we get noticed and they start talking amongst themselves in this weird language, and as soon as we get down, these motherfuckers stand up and start sprinting towards us. I tell everyone to ditch the idea of the fire escape and not to worry about the cop. We need to get the fuck out of here. So we start sprinting through this building with this cult in close pursuit behind us. We miraculously make it of the building and are starting to run across the field to the main gate, and as we're doing so, the cop notices all the commotion, turns on his sirens, and comes driving in. Thank God he manages to cut the cult off from us and he starts to chase them as we get away safely. Honestly, I can safely say it was the scariest experience of my life. What would we have done if they'd taken one of our friends? Would we have to go back in and confront them? I don't know, and I'm glad that it didn't happen.
Alaska is the perfect place to go if you want to get away from the rest of the world. As America's least densely populated state, you have plenty of breathing room from any kind of authority or prying eyes that may want to know what you're up to. For this reason, my home state is very attractive to all sorts of weird and unsavory groups. I've stumbled across Scientology centers at the end of a dirtback road with nothing else for miles around, heard stories from doomsday preppers who claim to have bunkers made out of shipping containers in the sides of mountains, and met people who have come out of religious cults in the interior that wanted to keep their followers away from any contact with the outside world. All of this and more you can find in Alaska. I was born and raised in Anchorage, the only big city in the state. Growing up, we had about 250,000 people in a city. It takes about 30 minutes tops to drive across, so that gives you an idea for what we up north consider a big city. The only other real city in the state is Fairbanks. These two cities are connected by 360 miles of a two-lane highway. It's a 7-hour drive one way to get between them through one of the most beautiful landscapes on the planet. Mountains rise up on either side of you between Anchorage and Denali National Park before you drive through these colossal canyons, carved out of the rock over tens of thousands of years by melting glaciers and rivers. Past Denali is another 3 hours of driving through a vast, flat interior plain with mountains in the distance. I say all this to help you understand just how desolate it feels in the Alaska, even on the highway. After you get out of Anchorage or Fairbanks, there is nothing but wilderness as far as the eye can see, save for the occasional small town with a max population of about 1,000 people on a good day. 10 years back, it was even less. Alaskan girls are built tough. We change tires, hunt, fish, camp, and generally have a great appreciation for the great outdoors that women in the lower 48 don't really have if they're near a city. The joke is that Anchorage is the biggest rural city in the country. All this brings context to the following story. In high school, things were different, or at least they felt different. I was a young and stupid woman who thought I could conquer anything due to the aforementioned built tough attitude I was raised with. Senior year of high school, I decided to treat myself to a camping trip into the mountains up past Talkeetna. Nothing fancy, just an overnight or two in the most beautiful state at the most beautiful time of the year, mid-June. Going up north in peak summer here has a weird feeling to it. The sun never really sets. If you've ever seen the movie Midsummer, that's what it's like. It gets to about dusk, and that's it. It's still bright and sunny out the whole night through. Shout out to readers in the far north of Scandinavia and Greenland. The false sense of security I had, thinking that the midnight sunlight would mean safety, probably nearly got me killed or worse. My second mistake was not telling anyone where I was going. I just packed up for my trip, stopped at Subway for a lunch, and headed out into the great beyond. The drive was fine. A solid 2.5 hours of driving north along the highway took up most of the afternoon as I jammed out to the greatest hits from the radio on Cool 97.3. After you get through the Matsu Valley, you get into the mountains again. Tall spruce and evergreen trees line the road on both sides with the occasional empty space where there has been some clear-cut logging. All of this gives you a sense that while you're out in the wilderness, you are still connected to civilization in some way. This led me to my biggest mistake, not staying at a state park campground. I was in high school with only a part-time job and didn't want to pay the $1.15 overnight camp fee, and was too scared to risk the fine, so I found a spot that looked good and pulled off the road. The map I got from my dad said there was an old mining site up a nearby mountain, so I decided that would be the best spot to head to for an overnight. My logic must have been that it was badass to spend a night in a mining ghost town or something. Pulled off the road, packed up my backpack, put on some bug spray, grabbed my map and compass, and started off into the woods. Now, this hadn't been the first time I had done this. I've been on wilderness backpacking trips on my own with my dad, thorough my childhood. I knew my orientation skills and had taken some wilderness survival courses at camp. I wasn't just some dumb blonde wandering off into the woods with no idea of where I was, or so I thought. A solid 45-minute hike up into the hills, and I finally made it to where the old mining camp was supposed to be. There was nothing there, just an old concrete foundation with some holes in it and nothing else. I was very disappointed, but unsurprised at the outcome. I set up camp off in the woods and set to building a fire for dinner on the concrete slab. Here you're supposed to set up cooking a ways off from your camp, just in case bears are nosy. Last thing you want is a 1,300 pounds grizzly poking his nose in your tent, wondering why you smell like Campbell's soup and s'mores. By this time, it was getting late, about 10 p.m., but the sun was still high in the sky, and by the time dinner was over, it was nearly 11. I was starving and dug in. About an hour later, it was about as dark as it was going to get, so I hunkered down in my tent for the night, confident that the overgrowth was private enough for whatever animals might come out around then. I woke to voices in the distance and slow-moving crashing through the underbrush. My first thought was hunters. My dad and I had run into a few on some campouts, so it wasn't uncommon. I relaxed and figured they would just pass through without incident and closed my eyes again. That's when they found my fire pit. A man's voice cried out into the brightish forest.
Who the fuck is camping on our property?
I froze. I knew I had fucked up and was getting up, grabbing my purse and putting on my shoes so I could go apologize before I heard the man again.
When we find you, you're fucking dead. You're on private militia property and trespassers get shot.
That's when the whole situation changed. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just pack up my tent and shit with some armed guy lurking around. I carefully put my shoes on, put my keys in my purse, and slunk away into the underbrush as quietly as I could. My thought was to slip away, wait until they got bored and left, then go back, pack up, and leave. I spent 20 minutes hunkered behind a log in the woods, barely in earshot, before I heard a second voice calling for the others. They had found my tent and were tearing it apart, going through my stuff. I heard one shout out.
"Bed's still warm. Trespasser's a chick. She left her underwear."
Okay, fan out and find her. Bitch thinks she can trespass, then there's gonna be hell to pay.
At that point, I wasn't concerned that I had left my spare change of underwear in my bag or that these creeps had found it. I needed to get out of there. Quietly, I made my way down the mountain for a good 30 minutes, tiptoeing and taking care not to step on twigs or make a ruckus. After the rustling and shouting of the men had faded quite a bit, I said fuck it and booked it as fast as I could in the midnight sun down the hills. I tripped and fell and got scraped up more times than I'd care to remember. Finally, I made it back to the road, but much to my horror, there was no car. I knew I had come out up or down the road from where I had been. I couldn't quite remember where I was at the time, but picked a direction and started walking. I rounded a corner on the road and saw my car, and the two men standing beside it. They were armed and dressed in surplus military gear. I hid in the brush on the side of the road and watched. A while later, several more men appeared from the trail I had taken. They dumped all of my stuff next to my car, hopped back on their ATVs, and drove off. I went up to my car, careful not to be seen, and found a note on my dashboard. It read something like, "If we ever catch you on our property again, we won't hesitate to use force. Consider this a warning." I went back to start loading stuff into my car and noticed what they had done. They'd cut up or destroyed all of my gear, probably as punishment for trespassing. Honestly, I'm thankful they did that because I'm grateful I didn't get shot. Ever since then, I have taken great care to camp only in designated camping areas. To the weird Alaskan militia group, I know you weren't actually going to kill me, but nevertheless, let's not meet.
A lone entity, yet a legion of nightmares. We stride once more down a hellish road paved with gore, entrails, and the echoes of those who dared tread here before. Shudder not, for I'll stand beside you in this macabre dance through the darkness. Gratitude for joining us in tonight's ghastly expedition into the enigmatic blood fog, where horrors lie hidden. Keep that gas mask strapped tight and bolt those doors and windows shut. One breath of this cursed vapor, and you'll transform into the vilest creature you can imagine.